Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me. Wow, there's so many of you here. It's fantastic to see you all. Today we're going to be learning how to draw an eye. You will need a pencil, a piece of paper, and the image of an eye, either the one that I gave you in the comments section of one of my previous posts or an image, a photograph that you've taken yourself. Okay, before we start to draw, I would like you to take your image, have a look at your image. So I'm looking down at my image now. I want you to close your eyes. No peeking. Close your eyes. Close your eyes and relax. I want you to imagine yourself drawing the outline, shading it in, taking the highlights off. Imagine yourself doing the very best drawing that you have ever done. Keep breathing, keep nice and calm. No peeking, nobody open your eyes. Everybody keep your eyes closed and visualise yourself doing a fantastic drawing. Open your eyes. Now, let's draw. Okay, have a look at your image. Show me where the lightest parts, the highlights, are on your image. That's great. Where are the darkest areas on the eye? Iris. Around the iris there's a dark line. Pupil. Eyelashes. Quite dark here. Here. Corner of the eye. Little bit of shading up here. Show me where the pupil is. Show me where the iris is. Inner eye. Outer eye. Eyebrow. Okay. Move your image to one side. Take a pencil. I've got a HB. I also have a range of pencils. If you've got these, fantastic. If you haven't, it's totally fine. You'll be able to do all of this with a HB pencil. First of all, we're going to start by getting the inner eye outline. So the outline of the very inside eye. Keep this nice and big on your page. Look very carefully at the shape of the eye. It is not an egg. It is not a perfect oval. We're just sketching nice and lightly. We've sketched the basic outline of the inside eye. We're now going to sketch on the iris. This is not a perfect circle because the eyelids are ever so slightly closed even when your eye is open. It also won't necessarily be in the middle of the eye because it depends which direction you're looking in. We're looking back and forth from our image that we're copying to our drawing all the time. We're now going to draw the pupil. If you've got an eraser, you can use it. Try not to depend upon it too much. If you don't have an eraser, you just re-sketch the line because this is going to end up a lot darker later on. We've got our nice shape. You've got your iris, you've got your pupil. You'll note I haven't drawn it all in because this is quite flat and there's a lot of shading involved, so there's no point in me drawing the rest of this. I'm just checking my lines. making sure I'm happy with the shape that I've got. Brilliant. We all up to this? All on track? Fantastic. We're now going to draw the upper and lower lines of the eyelid. These are also not perfectly smooth curves. Everybody's will have a slightly different shape. So it's important to look at the one that you are drawing from. Obviously, if it's the same drawing I'm drawing from, it will be the same as mine. But if you've got your own photograph, these lines may be different to the ones that I'm drawing. But they will be located in the same area. So I'm using a HB pencil, which is a normal writing pencil, to just get my outline. If you have a range of pencils, I often use one of the H, so this is 3H. I often use 2, 3 or 4H for sketching out because it's very, very light. And then for the next shading stage, I will use a HB or an F. Once we've got our outline, we are going to start doing a little bit of shading. I am going to use an F for this, but you can carry on with the HB pencil if that's all you've got. Now, I like to place the eye on the face, so I feel like it's got a location and it's not just an eye floating on the page. So the first thing I'm going to do is shade the nose area. So I'm going to put this shading in. Nice and light, looking back and forth from my photograph, from my image to my drawing. You might want to give it a bit of a smudge. It's important just to add in a little bit at a time. Don't whack in loads of shading really dark straight away. Just a bit of shading up onto the eyelid there. And then all I'm going to do is begin working round, adding that similar shade onto all areas of my drawing. If you are right-handed, usually you would work from this area down the page in order to not smudge with your hand what you've already drawn. And if you're left-handed, you would work from here this way, so that you're not smudging with your hand what you've already drawn. Note for shading, I hold the pencil like this. Or like this, because this gives me a lot of movement and not so much pressure. For sketching and drawing, or when I want more pressure and a darker shade, I'll hold my pencil more like I do to write. So we are adding shading to the eyelid. Anything that looks a similar shade, I am popping in the darker areas now, looking all the time from my image to my drawing. Again, if you're left-handed, you might want to work on the darker bits from this area going this way. I'm right-handed, so I'm working from here. I'm also going to suggest where my eyebrow is, but I'm not going to outline the eyebrow. Do not outline the eyebrow, because the eyebrow is made up of lots of individual hairs. I'm simply just putting a small line, so I remember for later sort of where it is. You can use your pencil to take lines so I can see that my eyebrow is there. And pretty straight up from the corner of my eye here. So I'm just noting where my eyebrow is for later. Carry on shading in. For those that watch my lemon, we're not going to shade the whole thing in today. We're just adding on the shading and building it up. We're not shading the whole thing in and then you know, wiping the highlights off. We're going to try and avoid the highlighted areas at the moment. We can take them off with a rubber, but for now, try and avoid putting a dark colour where the highlights are. So here I have some white highlights here and here. I'm going to avoid that area and try and leave those white. I'm applying a little bit more pressure because the iris, the pupil, sorry, is darker than the iris. All the time I'm looking at where my darkest parts are and I'm slowly building up the shading. The whites of the eye are not completely white. They will have a lot of shading on them too. This is created by the eyelid and the eyelashes. Just using my rubber for a second to put these highlights here back in. I am still using my F for general shading. Make sure you get rid of any dust rubber bits off your drawing because they make nasty marks on your drawing if you colour over them. I'm working on the centre of the eye at the moment. I'm going to try and get a bit more of that finished off. I'm now going to select a slightly darker pencil. You can carry on with the pencil that you have. If you have got a pack of pencils, I'm going for a 3B. You can use a 2B, or you can just apply a bit more pressure with the pencil that you've already been using. You all still with me? For anyone just joining, we've done an outline of the inner eye. We've done the outline of the pupil. We've done the outline of the iris, upper eyelid, lower eyelid, a slight indication of where the eyebrow is, but we've not outlined the eyebrow because it's made up of individual hairs. We don't want it coloured in as a block. We've then started adding shading around the eye to place it on the face, and then shading to the inside eye, and I'm going to carry on now with the inside eye. I want you to note that the eyelashes, look very carefully, they do not grow from the very inside here, they don't not grow out here. Your eyelid has a thickness, and the eyelashes grow from the outside. We're going to add them on later, but I just want you to note that the eyelashes grow from the outside of this eyelid. They're from this line, not from the inside. We're really going in and adding on all the shading now. Look where the darkest bits are, try and leave the highlights. Try and shade in the direction So your iris is made up of a muscle that opens and closes like this. So I often shade going out or working in, because that is the shape of the muscles and the reflex. Try and leave the highlights, keep them really clean and white. Looking back and forth all the time from the image that you're drawing to your drawing. Don't lose your line. If you look like you're losing your line, just pop it back in a little bit. Add in some shading to the corner of the eye. Trying to leave those highlights very white. There are a lot of shapes. Drawing is, it's shapes, it's shading, it's light and dark. If you really look carefully at the shapes and where the different shades are, where the darkest, where the lightest, where the medium tones are, the more you look, the more accurate you're able to represent it, and the more accurate your drawing will look in the end. So all I'm doing at the moment, I'm trying to get this middle of the eye sort of as best as I can get it for now, and then I will move outwards. So all the time what I'm doing is I am working on an area and then working up the entire drawing, then working back on an area, then working up the entire drawing. I never really work on one tiny part and finish it up. You can if you want, but this is how I like to work, working up the entire drawing in one go. So now I am just going to, as this becomes darker, I note that this needs to be a little bit darker here. I like to add on where the bridge of the nose is, because it just makes it look like it's actually on a face and not just like an eye floating about. So that's my shading right up to my eyebrow, round the bridge of my nose. There is a lot of converging lines coming together, crossing over here, because we have the outside of the corner of the eye here. This leads up into the outside of the eye. We've got the line, the very inner line of the eye here, which comes down and points towards, in my case, the corner of the eye. And it's all of these lines, getting them in the right place, that will make your drawing look realistic. Lost my highlights a little bit, so I'm going to get the eraser and pop them back in again. It's easily done when you're smudging it all about. Don't worry about it, just get the rubber and pop them back in. How's yours looking so far? Brilliant. Very, very good. Keep your focus, keep going. Just popping some of my highlights back in with my eraser. If you don't have an eraser, what you can do is you just darken up around the highlights and darken up the entire drawing to make the lightest parts look as light as they can. I am going to pop in my eyelashes. Now, as I said, these do not grow from the very inside of your eye. They're actually coming from the outside of your eyelid. And look at the direction. They're not all lying in the same direction. they grow around the eye. So you've got some coming out this way as they turn, and you've got, as you come towards the inside of the eye near your nose, they'll be growing this way. Looking carefully at your image, the one that you're drawing. It doesn't matter if you don't get them all perfectly in the same place as they are, as long as they're growing in the right direction, because once you take this drawing away from the photograph you're drawing from, nobody will see that photograph, so they've no idea what it looks like. As long as you've got a good enough representation of what an eye looks like, it will look good, very, very good. So I'm not worried too much about getting them absolutely perfect. Do these quite quickly because of the way that they grow and the way that they lie. It's quite random. Down here it's a mixture of sort of shading and the hairs bending to where they grow out from. I'm going to pop these bottom ones on, again not from the very inside of the eye. You'll see there's a second line here. This is the inside eye, and here is the outside of the eyelid, and that is where the eyelashes are growing from. Look at the direction very carefully. And I'm going back to shading my eye. Spend the time, be patient, keep focused, keep looking back and forth from your drawing to the photograph. From your drawing to the photograph, from your photograph to your drawing, keep looking. 10% drawing, 90% looking. That is how we get something looking good. It's all about seeing, really, really looking to see. Just making sure I'm not losing my line there. I want to make this a little bit darker. Focus on underneath the eye a little bit of a dark circles. Just adding on that shading all over to really look like the eye is actually sat on a face and not just in mid-air or just dancing about on the page. Shading there, underneath the eye. Pop my eyelashes back in because they've disappeared. Just slowly, carefully building everything up. I'm going to now work on the inside of the eye again because I'm quite happy with the outside, so I'm going back to the inside of the eye again. Just looking back and forth, looking carefully at where the shading is. I'm going to get myself a darker pencil. So I've now got a 6B. If you don't have a range of pencils, don't worry about it. Just apply a bit more pressure where the darker areas are, and hold your pencil like this and shade like this for in the lighter areas. Use your finger to smudge. Do love a good smudging on the drawing. What I'm doing now is I'm trying to gel everything together, because at the moment we've got some real light spots, we've got, you know, some bits of shading here. It's not really coming together, so we're going to do all of the mid-tones and help it all gel together nicely. So I'm really looking very carefully now at the shades. The shapes, exactly where the dark and the light bits are. Shading in the direction of that iris, as I said, with the light it opens and closes, so I am shading in the direction of the iris muscles really. Keep going, keep focused, you're doing really, really well. It's starting to come together a little bit now here, which is good. Just noticed I've got an eyelash there. Don't overdo the eyelashes because you'll look like some sort of dolly. They're quite spaced out, quite random. Some of them come in to form sort of triangular shapes. Just building up all of that shading. Making sure I don't lose my lines. This is quite a defined line, so do draw that back in, that eyelid, that top eyelid line. The corner of my eye needs to be back in. Keep that shape of my eye there. Just dealing with the corner of my eye, just making this shading here meet the shapes and shading here. Make sure I don't lose it. Keeping sketching in. Again, this is quite a defined line underneath your eye. There's a line there where the eyelashes kind of come out of. Putting those back in because I've lost them a little bit with the smudging. That's totally fine. Everything is fixable in a drawing. Don't ever panic. It's completely fine. You just, redraw it a bit, rub it out a bit, smudge it a bit. Totally rescuable. Shading in the direction of your eyeball. Your eyeball is round. This needs to be much darker. Looking carefully, there'll be shapes in the pupil of your eye. The highlights will not be perfect circles like those cartoon drawings. They'll be likely to be reflections from windows of the light source in the room, light bulbs, your things in the room, everything is reflecting in your eye. So look carefully at the shapes. Be patient, take your time, enjoy drawing. Let's have a go at popping the eyebrow in, because I've got this quite far now. I'm going to have a go at doing my eyebrow. So look, individual hairs. Nearer your nose, they tend to grow upwards, and then they start to lie down and grow along to create the length of your eyebrow. So look carefully at the direction of the hairs and the spacing of them as well. It won't be perfect. Look, I've got some up here, some come together here. So we're just going to look at the direction of each of the hairs. And remember so I've got a starting point here. This is sort of where my eyebrow starts. And I've got that one going this way. I've got some curved. Just suggesting where that eyebrow is. Growing up, some growing along, coming together. I've got some up here, looking really carefully at where those hairs are. Bit of shading, but mostly made up of individual hairs. Do not draw a line around the eyebrow. This is darker here, so I'm going to just shade that in, and then I'm going to put some more hairs over the top. Make sure you've got the main defining shapes in and the direction of the hairs. I am just going back to my eye again. I'm quite happy with where my eyebrows at. Just giving my eye one more look to make sure that I'm happy with the shading, the highlights. This light area here, it's got a bit lost. Make sure that's quite white, because that was one of my lightest areas I pointed to in the beginning. Make sure these are nice and clear. The white highlights in the centre of my eye. Got one along here. I'm just looking really carefully where they all are and just making sure they're very, very white. Doing a little bit of extra shading around. Making sure I can see where the corner of my eye is. Strengthening up the lines a little bit and making sure everything is the right shade. This to be a bit darker, and I'll pop my eyelashes back in again. Can draw with the rubber a little bit. Just putting the finishing touches, just making sure those whites are really white and the darks are as dark as they should be. Sometimes I darken up this bit a little bit more than it should be, just because it really gives that shape of the eye. As I said, artistic license. No one will see the image I'm drawing from when I've finished. As long as it looks pretty much like an eye, that's good enough for me. Looking back and forth from my photograph to my drawing, just checking the shading and the shapes and the line. How are we doing? Are they looking good? I bet they're looking fantastic. Well done if you're still here following. You've done brilliantly. Fantastic concentration, great listening. You can take this lesson again anytime you like. You can pause it, you know, it's going to be there after this session is finished. You'll be able to redo it and re-look at how I'm drawing and draw a different eye or the same eye again. Get someone to sit for you, draw their eye. It's great to draw from life. And I think for today, we're going to leave that there. Well done. Okay, popping my pencil down. Let's have a look at those drawings. Wow. Hold yours up. They're fantastic. Whoa, that's brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant. Well done. If you haven't quite finished yet, I see there's a couple that are, don't worry about it. Don't worry. You can watch it again. You can go back to where you got up to and you can carry on from there. As I said, you can get other pictures and redo the lesson. Don't worry about it at all, but they're all looking brilliant. No matter where you are up to, you've done fantastic. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined in today. It's brilliant to see so many of you coming back. I will be doing lessons roughly once a week, and I hope to see you all here again. please do post all of these fantastic drawings in the comments section below this video when it's available after this session. I would absolutely love to have a look through them all and give you all a little bit of feedback, so do post them there. Brilliant. Thanks so much. See you next time. Bye.